Hello everybody, welcome. This course is going to be about early childhood stimulation. Nice to meet you. My name is Hanna Zorka Czirmai, and I'm an infant and early childhood educator in Hungary. I finished my bachelor's in Hungary as well, and my specialization is diversity, multicultural education, and fighting against discrimination, but also since I went to one of the best schools, universities in Hungary, we got a really broad education in stimulation. So I am going to teach all of you and maybe myself to with your questions a bit more about how to help child and how to play with them, because stimulation is not just a scientific word, but it's also the most essential part of a child's life. The content is going to be divided by 7 parts. The first one is about the basis. We are going to cover terms and the things you need to know in order to understand my presentation. The second part is going to be a bit chewy because it's the scientific part of the subject. And then in the third part, just we are briefly going to touch about standards or how development works in childhood. And because we are talking about development, we need to talk about intervention too, and that's going to be the fourth part. In the fifth part, we need to talk about some advice I would like to give all of the parents or educators, daycare providers to use in everyday life in order to connect to the children as well as possible. And the sixth and the seventh part is going to be a bit more cheerful and more leisure because we are going to talk about toys and ideas on how to stimulate a child. And also I'm going to show you some videos and some DIY ideas as well. So the first part were the basis. And in these topics, we are talk about 3 things: about what childhood is, what childhood is, what stimulation is, and the most important things that you need to know when you talk about stimulation or a child. Childhood, and what we are focusing about is early childhood, consists of infancy, which is the age of birth, from birth to 2 years old, and then starts early childhood, which goes up to until 6 years, so from 2 to 6 years old. And what is really important to know that age doesn't always matter because everybody is a different individual. Sometimes our age doesn't show how developed we are, but we are going to talk about that a bit more later. And then the second part is what stimulation is. And stimulation, like the easiest way to describe it is something that encourages and provides development in our whole system. And during these topics we are going to talk about, we are more focused on sensory stimulation, which means that things that stimulate our nervous systems. And since our nervous system processes information, this helps us to develop. But it's also really important that stimulation and development guides us through life and help us understand how the world works around us and in us as well. And stimulation is not age specific. So, for example, for kids, stimulation is hearing a song or feeling how soft a doll is. But for example, us, stimulation is when we get into an exciting environment, for example, watching a soccer game or feeling a scent like wet grass. which also gives us a kind of rush. And maybe the most important thing, and what we really need to be careful about, are the must. We should never compare a child to someone else. Maybe we have someone in our environment who is at the same age as our child, or the child who goes to our group in the daycare or in the kindergarten. And that's why I told you age doesn't mean a thing when it comes to stimulation or childhood, because everybody's development is different. That's why we never compare. Of course, there are things where we need to stop and draw a line, where we need to step into this development and we need to compare. So we will talk about more in intervention about comparing our kids. What is also crucial is to pay attention to a child's needs. It's not about our needs. If we want to help a child grow and be healthy, we need to pay attention to their needs. If they are tired, we are not going to stimulate them. We are trying to get them into a safe space all the time. And with stimulation, our brain develops in a way where, if you, example, imagine a tower, you need to build the first floor to get into the second floor and the third floor and the fourth floor. You can't just start at the fifth. So it needs stages, and we can't really skip any stages, and we can't force our child to go from 1 to 5 with skipping 4 stages. And I think because we are living in a century where we love to discriminate toys by gender, we need to be really careful, because toys are genderless. Kids doesn't care if dolls belong to boys or girls. They just want to play. So this is going to be the harder part of our presentation. I mean, my presentation, but because I'm presenting to you, you are part of my presentation. And we need to talk about the scientific part of early childhood stimulation. And the areas of this applies to sight, movement, hearing, socialization, and communication. And it's really important to know that even though we can stimulate ourselves at any age, the most specific age where we improve the fastest and where the most important is from our birth until the age of 6. There are two things that can impact on how our development goes, and these two things are genetics and environment. Imagine that your mother is someone who is short, but your dad is tall. Either you are going to be short or either you are going to be tall. It's really rare that you are going to be in the middle. It's something you inherited, it's in your genetics. So this can apply to a lot of other things in life. I'm just telling an example. And environment is all the people, all the places, all the interactions, all the toys, or all the objects we have around us. For example, if you live somewhere which doesn't have any impact in you, like you don't have furniture, you just have a carpet in your room, you are not going to be exposed to a lot of things, and you are not going to explore or play with things. So you are not going to be stimulated as much as someone who plays around all day or explores parks or outside world. And other than that, let's see the bright side. Everybody who comes to this world is born as someone who is ready to learn. We are all ready to learn, but there are things that could impact it. Also, a lot of people say, and a lot of studies show, that stimulation is a key to successful life, both mentally and physically. If you are well stimulated as a child, you're most likely going to be a well-mannered and physically healthy adult. And what we talked about before too, that childhood development and stimulation is like a tower. It's always builds up to a more complex level, as how, for example, we are going to see when we go to standard development. You can't jump over stages. And maybe the most crucial part with the scientific part is to know that for children, the way they learn or they stimulate themselves is through playing or exploring or social interactions. These are the things that are going to provide a healthy development. This is going to be the hardest part, but I promise we are not going to talk about it for long. You are going to be able to read through the whole table, but most importantly, we need to talk about standard development. It's something that is the most common way for a child to grow up. And like, for example, let's choose communication. I only did the table until the age of 3 because this is where you can recognize most of these developments. But for example, here is communication. At first, the child is only able to differ parents' voice, like he knows that, or she, that this is my mom and this is my dad. But most of the other communication is only crying, and they are not going to be able to communicate any other ways yet, but to change their volume. If they are, for example, hurting, they are going to cry louder, or if they have some stool in their diaper, they are going to use a different type of crying or a different volume of it. But then you will see from the second month until the 12th, there is a lot of change because now there's going to be way more types of crying. There's going to be sad crying, there's going to be happy crying, there's going to be desperate crying or tired crying. But now is a crucial part as well because this is the time when we are learning our sounds of our mother language. For example, me, as I was not exposed to Spanish when I was younger, I don't really see how b and v are like not, how do you say? I see them as two different letters, but here most of the people don't. Or in my language, there is a and there is o, which are two different letters, but here no one really knows about o. So as you can see, you are going to be exposed to these sounds, so you will be able to pronounce them the most authentic way you can. And from this part, you are going to say these vowels, or you're going to say some consonants. It's more likely vowels. And then you start chirping and babbling as a child. Of course, not us, but sometimes I can mix up pronouns, so forgive me for that. But the chirping is when you are trying to say a ba or a va, a pa, but it's still not a word. And babbling is when you don't even understand what is your child or the kid that you are taking care of wants to say, but they are like telling you some parts of the word. And when we arrive to the next stage, which is from the first year to the second year, the vocabulary of a child is going to increase a lot. They are going to know about more words. They are going to understand the meaning of the words. Like if they're going to say papa, we all know that they are talking about their dad and they know it too. And they can do like simple gestures, as when you ask them to give you something, they are going to reach out and give you the thing that they have in their hand. They are going to understand simple gestures. As for example, if you say please, they are going to understand that you want something from them. Or if you want them to eat and you are going to tell them, please eat, they know that you mean that it's digesting and eating. They are going to be less bubbly and more understanding with their more understandable with their words, and they will speak more, and they are not even bothered if you don't understand them. They just really want to speak, and they start to use phrases like thank you or welcome, or if they are hungry they can say eat. And then the last part is when verbal and nonverbal communication is going to differ, because they can use both of them at the same time, because you see, first they are just going to mimic some movement in communication, then they are more likely use words, and then they combine it at the age of 2 or 3, and their vocabulary is going to explode. They will know a lot of words, way more than you can imagine, and they will understand all of them. Their pronunciation might not be the best, but they are trying really hard. And there is a specific word on how they speak, and that is telegraphic speech, which means that they are making one-word sentences or two-word sentences, but two-word is the max. And these are going to be the first real sentences of a child. And this is the first time they are going to use grammatical suffixes. They are not going to say eat anymore. They are going to say eat it, or get me, any kind of something like this that has a more grammatical structure. So, but this is just about communication, and this table is just how, like, the most crucial points are of development, and not all the details are in this table because we don't have 6+ hours because we could speak about that a lot more. And here is where I need to talk and go to another direction, which will go into intervention, because some delays in development are okay and fine. For example, let's say that your child is 2, but it's still bubbling. It's okay because they need to bubble at this year too. But for example, if your child is 4 years old and not speaking, only saying pa, ba, or just 2 letters in communication, there might be some problems. And a really good example, let's stick with speaking or speech. If you have a boy, he is most likely going to start speaking later. If you have a girl, they speak earlier. And this is a standard development. But if you have a boy that is not speaking at the age of 4, at least 2-word sentences, or not using any grammatical suffixes, there might be a problem. And what if that happens? Let's go to intervention. Intervention is used as a complex development to help and teach atypical or special needs child, even disabled ones, and their families, most likely with special education or therapies. These development delays can be balanced out over time. It's not going to happen in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. You need to really work, for example, in what I've showed you, the example on the child speaking abilities. But how are you going to do that? First, you need to recognize the situation, and the sooner you know, the sooner you can help and step into a helping and healing period. What you really need to know, and it's important, who to ask help from. And special education teachers, psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists are all there to help you, or kinesiotherapists, for example, if it's about movement, and even language therapists, which is, in our case, with our example, is the one that could work. So never forget to reach out to professionals. But this is just to give safe space to child, because we are still more focusing on stimulation. But before we go to the fun part, there is still something that we really need to talk about, and these are connecting to the must things and some advice I would accept, but that's me. And the first is responsiveness. We need to respond to a child's need, as how I already told you, but we need to react to them. As if we see that a child is hungry, we are not going to play with that child more just because we want to stimulate them with a bowl. We are going to feed them, or the way we talk with them or invite them into a game. We need to be in an intimate relationship and be caring about them. If, for example, we are angry because the child did something, we are not going to play with him or her with an upset mind. We are going to wait for ourselves to cool down. The next thing is supporting, because playing in their age is not about rules on how to play with a ball. No one says that you need to bump it on the ground, or no one tells you that you need to throw it. In that age, any kind of form of a play is accepted, and we shouldn't judge it or tell them how to do it. And supporting can also mean that we can invite them into playing together. You can sit down on a carpet and start to play with something, and you can ask the child if he wants to be or she wants to be involved in it. The third thing is independence. Children need to be independent from us, and we need to encourage them to explore their games, their environment, people to talk with, their mates in their group. And also, for them to be independent, we need to explain about how things work in life, or how things are most likely going to happen, so they are not going to be surprised. And the last thing is initiation. We are trying to provide them a safe space to learn and to have a learning process which needs to be spontaneous. We don't need to push them to learn about something that they are not ready to learn, but we can provide them the space to do it. And also, how I told you that we can invite them into playing, it's either us initiating or them initiating. It doesn't matter. It just needs to be a whole circle. Whenever we are with a child, responsiveness, supporting, independence, and initiation needs to be a part of our good times together. We are ready to talk about some more stuff and some, how to say, less educational and more entertaining part. And these are going to be devices, toys, and objects we can surround our child with, or the kids in our group. The first, I divided the same as I did with the table. So the first part is going to be from birth until the 2nd month. And in these months, we don't need to stimulate them that much. They are new to this world. They are trying to be part of this world. Imagine you were in some dark place for 9 months, which was really safe, and you know every movement that you were exposed to, and you were never exposed to lights, for example, and now you are in a whole bright new world, so you don't need that much stimulation. But which are really good, I brought 3 examples. The first one is a comfort cushion, which you can use 1 or 2 hours a day, not for longer, because this is going to be about laying on stomach. Kids can lay on the stomach, but not sleep on their stomach, because then there's going to be some problems, and I don't want to get into those because I am not here to scare you. And the other One is a swing chair, which can move to side or in the front and in the back. This is really good to experience balance at this age or learn about rhythm, because these devices move to a specific rhythm. And if they have small toys, this is going to be the first experience of visual perception. And the last one is more about building intimacy, and it can be started from birth, and that's a baby carrier, which is really for establishing connection between the person who is holding the baby and the baby. And it helps the baby to hear and see what's going around while her caretaker is doing everyday things. The next picture is a bit more crowded, but not as crowded as it's going to be. And this one is about until the age of 1. There are some toys that I want to talk about with more details. And the first one is going to be this wonderful bell ball, which is soft and colorful. And it helps the child to hear something while they push it away, because first they are going to push that thing away and they will see how colorful it turns, but also hear that something is inside that ball, which is going to be excite them a lot. So because of that, they are trying to reach that ball again, to push it again. And this is a really simple ball, and you can make one at home anytime you feel like. You just need bells and a really soft fabric with some feeling, maybe a bit of talent in sewing, but they don't really care about how good your stitch is going to be. The other thing is sand molds. These are not the same as a building set, like sandcastle building set. First, you only need to give them the molds, because they are going to be invested in their in their material, or how deep they go inside, or what kind of shape they have, but they are not really going to fill it with sands. They're just going to use it as something to play around with. And the last one, this one, is a playmat or a play gym. This is going to entertain your child for a longer period, most likely, because it has a lot of things. It has sight improvement, because they have smaller pieces of plushes or toys on them, which they can follow, because their movements are going to move these objects too. And they can roll around in these, because they are soft. They can hang on to the sides of them. And also these toys most likely going to have something in them, so they make some sound. As a side note, it's really important to know that in this age, the most part of the stimulation is about touching or hearing, feeling things. Like you can feel how a structure is, or how soft the fabric is, or hear that something is near your ear, or maybe the ball is somewhere else where your sight can't really see it, but then you are going to turn and watch that object because you can hear it. So it makes you want to move. The next one, according to the table 2, is from the year 1 to the age of 2. It is more complex, and as you can see, these games and toys have smaller parts to it, which are not dangerous for kids because they can't be swallowed. The smallest piece on these pictures is this big, which is, let's say, not really suitable for a child to swallow, because they don't even have that big of a mouth to put it inside. And what I really want to talk about is this activity cube. It's how would you describe it the best? Something that you need to do by standing up, and provides way more tasks than a usual toy, because you can see there are things that you can roll around, or there are beads on it which you can move in any direction you want in a maze. And also it improves the structure of our muscles because we are standing while we do all of these things. And I bet most of the people know this. It's a Montessori building block. They have the tower version of it, and they have a lot of toys. And this is like the first game that requires kids to use logic, to use their thinking, because they are going to see that even though they can fit the rings in any order they want, they are not going to be as how the adults made it. And they are going to think, let's see, maybe if I change the order, it's going to be better. There's some time going to pass until they realize that it's going to form a pyramid. So this is where logic starts to build up first. And the last one is really common as a big group, which is puzzle. But puzzles can be really different. And for kids, the best one is if they have a shape and a drawing on it. And they just need to find the shape to put the piece of puzzle into. And the best choice if they have a small handle on them so the kid can grab it this way and put it on the shape, because their fine motor skills are not as improved as ours, why we could pinch a really small, for example, an eyelash. They won't be able to do that because it's not that developed. But you can see later on when I show you pictures, they are going to be able to do these pinching movements and to touch smaller objects. But as you see in this age group, thinking takes a lot of part of the play or the exploration. Moving is going to be more part of playing. They are going to use scooters. They are going to use those toys that they can push or pull around the kindergarten, or not the kindergarten specifically, more like the daycare, or around the household. And what is also really important, that they are going to be really constructive, which means that they are going to be really invested in building smaller towers, or putting 2 blocks on each other, or surrounding themselves with smaller blocks to build around. And this is going to be about from the age of 2 until the age of 3. And as you see, these games are more specific and way different than what we saw before. Because meanwhile, in the age of 2, they imitate something. For example, they are going to imitate their mom, how they bet, how they are betting them, or imitate their dad having a phone call. Now it's going to change to role playing, and they are going to use, for example, tools what their dad is using, or they are going to see their mom cleaning, so they want their own broom or cleaning set to role play and say, now I'm the mom. But the ones that are even more different are how logical they are going to be, because now they are using their brain while they are playing, and this is the first time they are going to understand rules. That there are some games before, like for example hide and seek, that you need to count and the others need to hide. In the age of 2 they wouldn't understand it, but at the age of 3 they are going to be more logical and way smarter for that. Fine motor skills are improved as well. So they are going to be able to use, for example, the xylophone, because their hands will be able to grab those small sticks and play on the xylophone. Or as you can see it here, this is a magnetic fishing toy, and they are going to also have a stick in their hand and a small magnet which is on a thread to put a fish to a puzzle. And this is the first time they are going to be interested in board games, but don't expect them to play a board game which has at least 100 rules. They are not going to understand that. They are going to understand the easiest one, which only require them to move, for example, a toy around the field. And I brought two images. One is showing what kids can play with while they are in the age of, for example, from 1 to 2, and from the age of 2 to 3. Like the most prominent difference are how role playing and imitation changes. First, how I showed you imitation is, then it's going to be role playing. As you can see on the picture, imitation, they are going to use a plush, which is going to be the projected picture of themselves, and they are going to rock it like how their mom would do it, but they are going to see that the plushie that they have is themselves. Meanwhile, when it's going to be in the age of 2 to 3, it's going to be a set for doctors with stethoscopes and all these kind of things, and they are going to go to you and they will say, I'm a doctor and I am going to book an appointment for you and do a checkup on you. So there is a big difference. The next is motor skills. There are fine motor skills and gross motor skills. When they are younger, they are more focused on gross ones. So they are going to be doing bigger movements. For example, as you can see, there is a Montessori climbing furniture. They will be really invested to go up on it, go down on it, sit on the top of it. But then when they come to be older, like for example, 3 years old, they will be really interested in fine motor skills. So they are going to use an abacus or a soroban, whichever how you call it, and they are going to play with the beats. They might not understand that they are about numbers, but they will be more invested to pinch one and throw it into the other direction. Also, the sizes and the colors are changing a bit too. Not the colorfulness, but by the age of 3, they are going to be introduced to even more colors. And the sizes of the art supplies they are going to use are going to change, because here you can see that at the age of 2 they are having really huge Crayolas in there, or crayons in their hands. If I want to be specific, the width of these crayons are this huge because they are not able to do as what we do. How could I show you? Pinch something like as a pen. They will only be able to hold it like this and paint with it like that. If it's too small, they won't be able to do it. So that's why they have the huge crayons. But then, as the other picture, you can see watercolors. They will be able to hold the paintbrush and put some water on it and use a color to paint with, and they are going to do it perfectly fine, of course with some smudges on the clothes. Thinking and logic is the last thing, which improves a lot. As you can see, there is a puzzle there which functions as a carpet, but they need to realize that these pieces can go together. And by the age of 3, they are going to understand how domino works because they know about rules now. And dominoes are more complex to know about, but both of them is a kind of puzzle game to do for them. And we arrive to the fun part of it, where we are going to put ourselves into situations. For example, imagine you have a child and you are home alone with that child. What can you do that is not required you to have some money or go to a store to buy some toys? You can go around your house and explore, and you can take your child with yourself, and you can also let them explore around the house to tell them this is the kitchen and this is where mom is cooking, or tell them to go with you and do the laundry, and you're gonna show them this is a washing machine which I'm going to fill with your clothes. And you can even ask them to help you, like, can you please put this in the washing machine? And they are going to do it and they will be enjoying it a lot. And there are some toys which we almost all of us can find in our household. For example, bottles. If you are going around, you buy in a store a Coke. Before you would hand that to a child, you need to take precautions because you need to put the cup sealed to the bottle. But they will play with it, they will throw it, they will play on it, make it make sounds. But also it's the same with plastic cups. They will stick them into each other. They will even try to stand on them, but because of their weight, it's not going to break or anything. Also boxes. You are ordering something and you know that it's going to be arriving in a box. You keep it, the child will act like a cat. They are going to push it around, they are going to sit in it, they are going to rest in it. They enjoy it a lot. Also plastic dinner sets. Most likely you are going to buy the dinner set for your child and they will enjoy it. They will make sounds with the fork on the plate, or they are going to mumble into the plastic cup. Also wooden spoons. They will make like beautiful sounds with it. Sometimes it's annoying because it can be loud, but they enjoy those kind of sounds. And how is it with boxes? It's the same with baskets, like the ones you are doing your grocery with. They are going to do what you are doing with the groceries. They will put items in it and they are going to try sitting in it. And the same with shopping bags. They will fill it with things. They are going to throw all the things out and then fill it again. But what if you want to stimulate your child outside your house? There are a lot of things you can do. One is, even from like the youngest, is baby swimming. It can be a family activity. They don't say that only the mom can go or only the dad can go. One of the parents can go, even their siblings can enjoy this activity. And this is going to stimulate the nerves to motivate their movement development. And also it calms them a lot because water reminds them of their mom's womb. The next thing is music classes. They enjoy instruments, they enjoy to make sounds, to listen to sounds. It stimulates all the senses. It's going to let them explore the world of music and the instruments, and they most likely want to take part in it. One that is practiced a lot all around the world is hiking, because fresh air also gives the same calmness as water, for example, and they are going to see a lot of things. They will be exposed to trees which they might not see around town. They are going to find small seeds that they will be invested in. They will see rocks around each other and they can climb that. And they will find the simplest joy in finding the branch of a tree and play with it. And the last thing, which I'm not sure if they practice it here, but it's called lap game. And this is something that we are inviting the kid to do. If we use our voice through singing or nursery rhyming, while we have the child on our lap and stimulate them with movements. And to show you how these are, I brought some videos of it.
Ez a malac piacra megy. Ez itthon marad. Ez kap finom pecsenyét. Ez semmit se kap. Ez a pici visít nagyot. Új, éhes vagyok. Lovacskázni fogunk, figyelj! Gyí, paci, paripa, nem messze van Kanizsa, oda érünk délre, liba pecsenyére. Jancsi bohócok leszünk. Jancsi bohóc a nevem, cintányéra tenyerem, orrom krumpli, szemem szén. Szeretném, ha szeretnél.
As you could see, our voice and our body is included sometimes. We are touching the kids, sometimes we don't. But the most important is that we are together in that and we can feel an intimacy between the child and the adult playing with him or her, because it involves an interaction. During these lab games and rhymes, we are going to broaden their knowledge. For example, you could see that the lady was teaching the girl to how to count on her fingers, and the other lady was teaching how a body can move. Also, if you are really creative, you can do your own toys, you can make them, and it's really easy. You don't even really need to go anywhere from the house. And these are some examples, but the one I want to talk about is the activity board. The only thing you would most likely need to go and get from Home Depot is a bigger wood board. But on that, with the glue, you can stuck zips. They enjoy zipping out and zipping stuffs. Or you can put a fidget spinner on it with glue and they will spin it for hours. Or a not working calculator, they will push the buttons all day long. Or you can do a line of pipe and you can teach them to put a ball in it, which is going to slide through the pipe and arrive at the bottom into a collecting box. And these are all the things that you can find around the house most likely. If no, anything that is on this board, you will find it in dollar stores or Home Depot. And as the last thing, as an idea or advice, is that we live in the 21st century, so we are able to connect to social networks. And the most upcoming social platform is TikTok. And if you know, there are some accounts which focus on childhood stimulation or baby care. And on these videos, you will see that on one, a lady is building a Montessori tower from Cheerios, spaghetti, and the Play-Doh. And it works the same way, and it focuses on fine movement. On the other video, you will see that out of a box, you can build a game about feeding a bunny, which is going to be about how to take care of a so-called living creature.
Entertain your toddler with this Feed the Bunny activity. Draw a bunny or download our free printable. Cut out the tummy and mouth. Tape a plastic bag inside and then make some carrots with pipe cleaners. Toddlers will love feeding the bunny over and over again.
And the last one is for babies, and it concentrates on how they are going to be involved in a game of balloons when they don't even know what balloons are, because these balloons are going to move their legs, and with the moving of their leg, their vision is going to follow the balloons. And if you are still interested in these topics and you are more into broadening your knowledge, I wrote some options on how to do that. Most of them are books. For example, there is one about early childhood stimulation, and there is another about development psychology, or what intervention is, or how development goes. But I also listed some authors who are really famous and who were investigating and researching about childhood and development psychology. But also for the babies and the moms, I listed 2 YouTube channels, which are, one is a Spanish speaking one, of course, and all the books are Spanish speaking too. And if you are going to open the slides, you will see that they are linked to a site where you can purchase these books. But the Mundo Mom is a Spanish speaking channel, and the lady who owns the channel makes a lot of stimulation content, also with recipes and anything that can improve a child's living. And Haber Sensory is the most popular channel for kids to experience sounds or colors, movements through a TV or a screen they have. And now we reach the end of the presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm really thankful for your patience, because I know that there were some rocky parts which were more scientific and more involved in childhood education. And I'm also really thankful for your attention, and I'm looking forward to hearing all your questions.